Awesome. So we are live on YouTube. Welcome everyone. The live podcast Convo with Ayush and a very special and interesting episode. We have Rahul George with us, who is the founder of Hypnosis Life. And I got to know a very interesting fact about him just now. So I'm still in shock, recovering from it. So I'll let him introduce himself first. Who is he? What does he do? And what his plans are?
Interesting. So many different ways that I can answer this, but let me start with where I am today. So one of my avatars is I host a podcast show, which is called the iHypnosis Life Coaching Journeys. And in fact, this is where I had the pleasure of listening to your story, Ayushi, and getting to know you better. So that's one avatar of, who am I? What do I do? The other thing, of course, about me is a couple of years ago, I discovered that, even I have a Brahmastra, and this is hypnosis. So I'm sure over the course of this conversation, I'll have more opportunities to talk, about what it is, how I use it, and why, for me, it's like every artist has a muse, M-U-S-E. And so for me, hypnosis is that muse. And that's one of the reasons I always, pretty much most of the time, have a smile on my face because I get to do this work pretty much every single day. A little more of sort of like a formal connection to who I am and what I do. I've been now at this point in the personal development space for little over 20 years. So even before formally, like today post COVID, there are a lot more people who are aware of what is coaching, what is healing, what is mentoring. Like these are things that a lot more people are getting into. But I chose to devote my life to this many, many years ago. And that's something that I've been building out over these last 2 decades. And yeah, there are several avatars before this. At one point, I used to do corporate training using theater. And I used to run a theater group in Bangalore. And the other avatar was I used to be in advertising. In fact, that was my first career or that where I started, and then the journey began.
Wow. Amazing. So when I hear hypnosis, I'm
Hmm.
very curious about
Hmm.
this because I have a few friends
Hmm.
who are into hypnosis and all of that.
Nice.
So firstly, what it is and how
Mm.
does it work? Like chemically, physically, because I've seen some videos, crazy and some
Mm.
scary videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
So how does it actually work?
Mm. So I guess one way to answer your question is, do we all experience hypnosis? It's a trick question, obviously, because the answer is yes, we all
Yes.
experience it pretty much all the time. Because it's like every single day when we're on our phones, we are, in simple terms, we are hypnotized. Our
Right.
attention goes to one thing. Like, for example, if maybe we're watching reels or, really like focused on content that we're consuming, pretty much, 10 minutes disappears, 20 minutes disappears. So something on the lines of time distortion happens, which means we think we're going into just maybe, spend 2 minutes there, and suddenly you look up and it's like 20 minutes on the clock, right? So that's one way of explaining what is hypnosis, which is basically focused attention. Um, what happens, of course, is good hypnosis, if I can sort of call, since you talked about, scary videos or
Yeah.
you've seen scary representations. Uh, if you're having a good experience, you will definitely be more relaxed and maybe depending on how time progresses today and how this how our interaction goes, who knows, maybe we can do like a 5-minute demonstration because the best way to talk about hypnosis is
It's
to experience it, right?
experience.
So yeah, so I'm saying one of the things that will happen is that, your blood pressure will, there'll be a calming of your breath. Your blood pressure will come. If it's really spiked, it will come down. And then, once you're able to be in this state, obviously you will be able to connect to You can call it your higher power, you can call it your, connection with God, connection with the universe. Like these are all heightened states. When I say heightened, I mean these are more sort of, um, you know, it's hard to describe the experience, but you're having the experience. So one part of hypnosis is where you're able to access that. Now, there is one other time when we access it almost every day. Can you guess which one it is?
Sleep.
Exactly. So when you go to sleep, especially that early morning, somewhere between, I guess, between 4 and 5 or 3 and 5, when you're in that state, you're able to really tap into something amazing. The only difference is most often by the time we come back, we don't recall what it was. The
Yes.
messages are kind of lost, right? So that is something that hypnosis can do, which is if you were to experience it now, you could go into that altered state. You could tap into maybe, the solution for a problem that you're dealing with, right? So that's why, like I said, for me, talking about it, doing it, that's what keeps me, energized, keeps me happy, keeps me feeling so blessed that this is the work that I get to do every single day. So I think that
Okay.
answers two parts of your question. Did I miss a third?
Now we'll line it up, but this is very interesting. तभी वो गाने लिखते हैं that
Yes,
hypnotize कर दी मैंने and all of that. Girls have this power
exactly.
naturally.
100%, 100%.
Amazing. So now next obvious question comes कि
Mm-hmm.
इसको हम कितनी तरीके से कितनी चीजों में यूज कर सकते हैं in a
Mm,
good way, because you are into personal development and
mm-hmm.
I'm very curious कि
Mm-hmm.
कौन कौन सी चीजों को, technicalities को, modalities को we can incorporate in our life effortlessly बिना बहुत
Mm,
ज्यादा time, because we don't really have it.
correct.
And once, definitely, if we know that we are getting hypnotized every single day, we can be
Mm,
more aware and save ourselves
yeah,
from that.
yeah.
But consciously कितने तरीके से हम इसको यूज कर सकते हैं in our lives?
So I'll answer it like this. There are simple ways to do it. One is, if you agree that like they say, what is the new economy? Any idea? What is the new economy?
Attention.
Exactly. So what does that mean in simple terms? See, you're in the space, so you know it. For most people, we're unaware of it, right? So what is that? What do I mean by that in simple terms? That we are constantly getting drawn or attracted by different things by companies, right?
Hmm.
So some of the biggest companies on the planet, the billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies are constantly finding ways to get our attention.
Correct.
So one is to acknowledge or to know that ye hota hai. This actually happens every single day. Our phones are literally like they say casinos, right? They're designed to keep us on that, keep
Hmm.
constantly getting that hit, right? So it becomes hard for us to get away from it. So one way to be aware of it is, let's say, choose habits that make you feel good, right? Say, for example, eating right or exercise. Like these are things that this is like the simplest way of, not getting hypnotized. Yeah, because here's the thing. Let me ask you this, and I see we've got Neha and Priya here as well. So just if you're doing it in your mind, and since I have you on the mic here, I'll ask you, Ayushi. If I say, Ayushi, don't think of a pink elephant sitting on a pink tree with a rainbow umbrella. Do not think about it. Tell me what's happening inside.
Yeah. So I have done this till the pink elephant.
Exactly.
You added a few things, but yeah, no, I can't stop on the second or third also.
But what that means is I got you to think about the pink elephant.
Right. That's
And
why
it took
negative content goes viral fast.
exactly. So if you say, I do not want to scroll on my say I don't want to scroll on my phone, what are you actually telling yourself?
Mm.
So what they say, and this is, it's still a pretty new science. There you go. Neha says, I'm thinking of pink elephants, right? And some people, depending on um, how fertile their memory is, or their creativity is, they can go off on a journey from pink elephants.
Oh,
So that's what I'm saying, that we are constantly being bombarded by messages that are trying to get our attention. So in simple terms, instead of telling yourself, I will not scroll my phone or whatever it is, tell yourself, okay, I will scroll for 20 minutes. I put an alarm and I'll stop. Now I'm
okay.
saying 20 minutes. You can choose whatever amount of time. that you connect to, where it doesn't feel like you are restricting yourself. If you do that, then you're in a more sort of, hey, I am choosing what I'm going to focus my attention on, right? That's one. The second thing is, as a practice, if you don't already practice meditation or any form of meditation, maybe this is that moment for you to say, what if I chose to practice meditation, even if I do it for 2 minutes a day? 2 minutes a day over 1 year is at least 360 times two. That's at least 700 plus minutes of meditation in a year, right? That is year one. Can you imagine in 3 years how
Mm.
much more you will build yourself into that habit, connect to that habit? So, again, this is another, you could call it a mind trick, which is start small. You want to exercise and you're struggling with, half an hour, 1 hour, very difficult. No problem. Just exercise for 2 minutes.
Exactly. That's exactly what I say, in terms of productivity to
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So these are more sort of like the what we call the overt ways of doing it, which means you're actually telling yourself. The covert is what, of course, when I work with people, and that's why even I run a community where I teach them this. The intention is that once you start here, you can go deeper. You can actually start to do this process, but where you're actually doing, like, for example, when we talk about hypnosis, there is it's like you have self hypnosis and then you have guided hypnosis.
Stop
So,
reading my mind, first of all.
was that your next
Okay.
question?
So yeah, I was about to ask that we can do hypnosis on ourselves and
Yes.
to others. So
Yes.
my connection to it, I think, is limited to the Jose Silva technique of mind
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
That's how where I think started, and I
Beautiful.
don't know consciously and
Mm,
consciously where how much I'm doing it, but I think
nice.
that's one way to do self
Yeah.
hypnosis.
Yeah.
Now you must have dealt with gazillion cases of
Mm,
this,
mm,
so let's go a little deeper
hmm
and check how intense it can be, like how intense
mm,
issues we can heal with
yeah.
this.
Yeah. So, if your question is, what can hypnosis be used to heal?
Yeah.
There are many, many reported cases. But again, I'll, you know, add a disclaimer here that we still haven't yet been able to scientifically prove beyond a, a certain measure of, like beyond the doubt, so to speak. We have not yet been able to prove that this works in this way. But there are enough, what we call sort of, you can call it anecdotal cases, which means there are enough people who have benefited from it, right? Like some of the most, in fact, some of the more powerful ones are anything to do with phobias. I personally have worked with people who have had phobias for maybe 10 years, 20 years. In fact, last year, I remember I was working with someone who had a phobia of heights for more than 5 decades, for more than 50 years. That session was all of probably about 20 minutes. And then we were going for a break because this was part of a practitioner that I was doing. So it was one of my students. So when I say one of my students, he's in his 60s. He, in the break, went up to his terrace and he shot a video from there. So
Wow.
if you say height phobia, you say, acrophobia, like there are these different, classifications, if you want to call it that. But definitely phobias is one which is more noticeable. Somebody has stage fright. Somebody has, like those are like the most common ones, right? Because again, remember, when it comes to phobias, most often we learn from one incident, one dog bite, one spider, one lizard, right? Like these are, or one like being on a high ladder or something like that, right? These, or being thrown into the swimming pool as a kid.
Mm.
Usually these are one-time learning when we talk about phobias. So the good news is most often one session is sufficient to switch it. And
Wow. So
by that I
5 decades of phobia can be
yes,
healed in 20 minutes of session.
yes. And I say
That's
can be because it has. Now, as always, there will be, disclaimer because every person is different. It depends on when they're meeting you, a whole bunch of things. But from my own personal experience, I know I have done that. That was last year. And I remember towards the end of last year, I worked with somebody else. who had a phobia of dogs, so much so that they saw the dog across the road and they would run in the opposite direction, right? And this session, after which now the dog can even come and sit next to the person, no problem. There are again disclaimers. Like so this person told me that only when if the dog suddenly jumps on them, then like they don't want that. And this is what I always say in the context of phobias. Just because you no longer have the phobia doesn't mean you have to hug every dog or animal or whatever. But there have been enough stories of people who have had that experience where they have gone so far beyond what was a phobic reaction, which means they would literally shake if you just started talking about it. Forget seeing the dog,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because that one incident from so long ago was so terrifying for them that they had in their minds generalized. So all dogs, even though now they are like 4 feet taller than the dog. You know what I mean, right? When you're a child,
Correct.
the dog
Yeah.
and you are same height. But when you grow
Correct.
up, which means you're 4 times bigger than the dog, but in your mind, the dog is like this. And it
It's like
creates
that
that.
elephant story, like a small elephant is tied to
Exactly. Exactly.
something, and even when it grows up, it's still thinking of
And they
that
literally
living
have
being.
a rope, not even the chain when the elephant grows up.
Yeah.
That's what the story,
Yeah.
that's how the story
Right.
goes. So definitely, if you talk about other curative, ways in which hypnosis is used, I know from my own personal experience, and I'm saying this because my wife has, spoken about it. She's written about it in her book. So she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018. So in her journey, especially 2018, I have worked with her, more on the mindset, right? Of course, the medication, all of that, we continue. We chose to go that route. But as far as working on her own mindset, working on her healing, that is something that I know that she has said openly. So she's not just telling me, ghar ke andar ki, ha, you're very good, right? Because we are married and like we've known each other for 30 years. It's not that. She has talked about it. She's, said this to many people openly, and these are in like cancer, support groups and things like that. So obviously she's very mindful of what she's saying. Uh, Another angle when you're talking about healing, things like, and I'm giving anecdotal cases. This is not scientifically proven or something like that, but I'm only saying that I know I did this and I've seen the results, right? Any kind of, skin ailments, like if you have any kind of rash or things like that, through a lot of self hypnosis that can be healed. Now, I'm still saying this because we're doing this live. There is a disclaimer, right? Every person is different. What is offered to them, how it is created, even if it's self hypnosis, how I would teach them so they can do it for themselves. Everything would be like a case to case basis, right? And I know this because I've done it for myself. Like last year when I was teaching my students, I said, hey, I'm teaching them. Let me also pick something that I'm working on, and it worked beautifully. So I know what it was before and I know what it is today. So I know that again, this works.
Amazing. This is life transforming.
Mm,
Your anecdotes remind me of two people. One
mhm.
is Naisha Neha. Both of them we have done podcasts with. So she healed uh, trauma flights, trauma flying in planes
Yes,
with NLP.
yes,
And Tazi ma'am is also there. She's also talked about NLP, that she has done
yes,
a lot with NLP
yeah,
during her cancer journey as well.
yes, yes.
And so, do you combine NLP in your
Yeah.
practices as well?
So it's a good question. And I've incidentally, Tazeen was a guest on my pod as well not too long ago.
Okay.
Um, and I loved her story. So to answer your question, I my journey started with NLP in 2007, right? So this is way before people, even most people like today, most coaches are at least aware of. You say NLP,
Yeah.
hypnosis is still very early days, but you say NLP, most people have some idea about it, right? They may have done a 2 day course
But
or
still, for
something.
the ones who are listening to it for the first time, please
Exactly.
do
So let
explain
me
it.
put it into
Yeah.
context, right? As the name suggests, NLP is neuro linguistic programming. So we'll take the second part first, which is the L, which is the linguistic. The simple way of explaining it is we are constantly speaking to ourselves, even right now, as you're keeping track of time, keeping track of the course, the questions, maybe comments, maybe the feed, all of that. But you're also being very present, and you're also talking to yourself, right? Okay, what do
Right.
I ask him next? Oh, this reminds me of something. So there's this, and everybody here, even on the call, they have an internal dialogue, right? There's always something happening. Now, the thing is, What was studied way back from the, and I'm talking like the origins of NLP, somewhere between the 60s and the 70s, when they started to study how people made changes, they found that linguistics had a large part to play, meaning language, what we speak, how we speak to ourselves.
Hmm.
I'll just give you a quick demonstration here, okay? So if you, and whether you've done it or not before, it's every time it'll be fresh. So you put your hands up like this, okay? So go ahead, put your hands up like this, and you just start telling yourself, uh, you know, I'm weak. I'm weak. In your mind, just say to yourself,
Hmm.
okay, I'm weak. I'm weak. I'm weak. I'm weak. And notice how at some point your hands will start to feel heavy and they'll start to drop, right? Can you feel
Right.
that? Just
Yeah.
keep, you keep saying it now at your own pace. You just keep saying it. You'll notice literally I can see by
They're
inches it's
going
starting to
down.
go down. Okay. Now we'll do the opposite. Okay. Just kind of shake it off for a second. Okay. Now hold it neutral. Okay. And say, I'm strong. In your mind, I'm strong. I'm strong. I'm strong. I'm strong. And it might even start to come together, or you might start to feel your body starting to get stronger. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything more for the moment, but I'm just showing you that
Yeah.
linguistics plays a big part in our day to day. You're having a good day,
Literally,
you're
just
having a
three
bad
words
day,
can change your entire perspective and
100%,
presence.
100%, right? So from way back when they studied, so there was one person called John Grinder who was very, like his specialty was linguistics, right? There was somebody called Dr. Richard Bandler. So he was somebody who focused more on, I mean, he was a computer scientist. So he kind of used that way of like his scientific, his math logic brain, let's call it that, to interpret what was happening to people, right? Why is it some people get well very quickly? Why is it some people take forever, right? Why is it some people quickly heal through any kind of healing intervention? Some people take a long time. So when they started to study people who were doing all of this, and this is where the connection of hypnosis and NLP, they both, as in Grinder and Bandler, they both studied somebody who was literally like one of those at the forefront of hypnosis, somebody called Milton Erickson. Okay, he's sort of like the father of modern hypnosis, and he had been practicing for some 60 years, pretty much his whole life. Okay, so when they studied him, they sort of like decoded what he was doing, and they studied people who were very good, like salespeople, family therapists. And I'm not going into the long version of it, but the short version is they found all these amazing things that people were doing and they coded it. So that's where, Bandler's ability to code, like how today people do coding, this is obviously way back in the day. They blended it all together into something simple. And exactly like you said, today I also had that opportunity of working with people who have flight phobias. In a matter of 2-3 minutes, that flight phobia can go like this. Okay,
Wow.
people would douse themselves with alcohol or pop pills because
Hmm.
they were terrified of flying. Okay, maybe they just saw it on TV and they kind of said, "Oh,
Triggered.
maybe hey, like even I
Yeah.
am afraid," sort of a thing, right? So that's sort of like the short version of it. So NLP, so basically the P is the programming. So all the time, whatever experiences we're having, we're kind of putting that into our, um, what do you call it? It's like our map, our instruction manual. All right. So in simple terms, that is what we're doing all the time. But when you study NLP or you work with somebody who has learned NLP, and in my case, I blend both together, you're able to be aware of the words that you're using. You're also able to create new words, more powerful words, more
Okay.
powerful self-talk, right?
Example.
So a simple thing like if you say, um, I'm lucky, you
Ah,
say,
good
I'm
one.
love. Okay. Now here's the thing. Imagine if like you have Japmala, right? Like if you were to say to yourself, I'm love 108 times, morning, noon, and night, who do you think you'll be in 1 week? Who do you think you'll become in 1 month? What
Great.
are the kind of behaviors you're going to start choosing over the course of the next 6 months? All you're saying is, okay, I'm going to time this. Each time I rotate one, the mala, literally like the
The
jap,
beats.
I'm just saying I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love. Okay. Maybe 30% will be very rote, very mechanical. But at some
Hmm.
point, those words will they'll start to change your,
Affect.
you asked one of the questions at the beginning, your blood chemistry will also change. Think about it.
Wow.
When you're happy, is your blood chemistry going to have toxins in it, or will it keep detoxing?
Right.
When you go into nature, why is it we feel so much better when, especially not if we go to a city, if we go to, the beach side, or we go to the mountains and we come back, why do we feel better? Because we've detoxified, right? Of course, you breathe, better quality air, but even your thoughts will change,
Correct.
right? What do I mean by your thoughts will change? What you're telling yourself is now like you're maybe remembering happy memories of long ago, right? So
Right.
all these are like simple ways of changing how we think.
This is exactly like breaking the pattern and going,
Yes.
because if you're thinking of like I'm anxious, and then you will remember things that makes you anxious, and then you'll see things that makes you
And
anxious.
if I may, even when you tell yourself, I am anxious, that is your identity, which is not
Right.
true, right?
Correct.
And this is where the parallel is, if you keep telling yourself every day, I am love, I am love, and you suddenly say, I'm anxious, you're like, oh, no, that doesn't fit. You're like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. Hang on. How do I know I'm feeling anxious? Oh, my heart is beating. Okay. So that means I'm thinking of something, and therefore I'm getting triggered, which is because it's reminding me of a memory of the past where something didn't work out,
Right.
right? So to bring it back together, since you asked, like with NLP, my journey of NLP started in 2007, and along the way, after almost 2007 makes it at least about 10, 12 years, I, kind of went to the source of NLP, which was hypnosis. And so for me today, when I work with clients, when I have conversations, there's always that blend of both. And of course, I prefer to do it conversationally. That means I'm not going to tell you, okay, Ayushi, in a moment, look up. As you look up, start to let your eyes roll back, close your eyes, breathe. Like that is the more formal induction, right? It's called an induction. So I won't do it formally. I will just, as I'm speaking to you, if the intention is for you to feel better, for you to connect to, your self-worth, right? I will make suggestions from different at different points where you will feel good about yourself. And isn't that what we talk about as good communication or good communication skills, right?
Okay. Now, I know why you're laughing, because you've decoded the body language and you saw me smile, and now my curiosity is taking me three places with three questions. One
Sure.
is, how much can you read with body language, and have you learned and studied about this? Two,
Mm,
what is the difference between NLP and hypnosis? Three,
mm,
what led you to start this? Because there's a trigger point,
mm.
something that must have happened in your life
Awesome.
that made you start. Which one do you want to take first?
I'll go with the last because that sort of takes me,
Connect with it,
on the timeline, or if I go back in time.
right?
Um, so I told you, like I started after my MBA, I started in advertising. I worked in advertising, some of the bigger the ad agencies in Bombay. I did that for a bit, but very early on, I knew, like I had this thing. I'm sure you've had it, and I'm sure you've come across it, where somewhere we feel something's missing, right? There's that vacuum, and we're like, okay, something's not working, like something's missing. So after having worked in, and I could have chosen that as my career path, but I knew that wasn't, it wasn't meant to be. And so when I started off, and because my degree was in psychology, so my background has always been in, personal development and self-development, so to speak. And so initially I thought, okay, I don't want to, I mean, I'm obviously not going to do psychiatry, which means I have to do my medicine and then eventually specialize. And that both was never going to happen. So I chose initially, I said, okay, maybe I'll do counseling. But the idea of doing counseling in the way I had, seen it, that didn't connect with me. It felt too passive for my personality. That's when I said, okay, what can I do? And in that process, I came across this thing called NLP, or Neuro Linguistic Programming. So I
Which
started that
year are we talking about? Which year is?
2007. So I
Okay.
started in 2007. Um, it, the counseling, when I was thinking of should I do counseling or not, when I'd come back, I was in Bombay for a while. When I came back to Bangalore, this is 2002, 2003. So over the next 2, 3 years, I was contemplating, which route should I go? And this sort of like, life has a series of incidents where it kind of like kept reminding me that no, I don't want to do the counseling. And then I just happened to come across somebody who talked about NLP. And this is again, remember, this is way before YouTube. And so the resources were limited, right? Today it's ChatGPT and everything included. It's much easier to access information. So one thing led to another. I found the course, I started doing it, and I realized, and more than the course, I found somebody who was living that. Like he was living and breathing NLP for literally decades. So he was a retired Jesuit priest, Father Richard McHugh, and he was a Jesuit, like a priest who had worked in Bihar for decades, right, in one of the villages, and he would travel to different countries, and half the time he would spend in India, in Bihar, in one of these, Christian missionaries, I'm guessing. Okay. So that was like when I met him, he was probably in his 70s, if memory serves me right. And just watching him like that, teach us and like literally embody it. For me, more than NLP, it was seeing how, life can be created. So that's when I was like, okay, that's who I want to be, right? Where literally you're standing or you're in your class and you're processing people. When I say processing, meaning you're asking questions and people are speaking. And as they're speaking, they're changing because he had this presence and he had this ability to hear them, really hear what they were saying and, go to the depths of it all in a matter of minutes. And now, as I'm telling you this also, this is what I do today. So, cut to, whatever, 15, 20 years later, what I had wanted is what I'm living today. So that was actually the start of it. But then, of course, it's one thing when you're learning this in a classroom where each segment would be like 2 hours, 3 hours of processing, right? But I realized that in the real world, it's very difficult for to get a client to come and work for 3 hours at a time, 5 hours at a time, right? So that's why I knew again that same theme of something's missing. So as I started to explore, I realized that my my guru was still alive and still teaching. So I started going to the US. So this is now, 2007, so 5 years later. So some 2012, I started going to the US, studying with Richard Bandler.
Can I
And
dare and ask what was your age at this time?
so when I started this whole journey, like not wanting to, I'd anyway chosen advertising, but I didn't want to go that path. That was like in my late 20s. So my 30s was where I started to do a lot of this research, right? And so over the last 2 decades, that's what I've been doing. And you know it was probably it didn't happen overnight. It was like, again, finding the right people and then doing the work, showing up, learning the processes, applying it, at times, doing it little bit here, a little bit there, because I didn't have a community. I didn't have, a teacher who I could constantly check in with. In fact, that's one of the reasons today in my community, that's what I offer them, because it's like, we create what we didn't have, right? So
Correct.
for me, at that point, I really wanted to learn this to speed it up, but that wasn't there. So today, people are learning, like today they're doing something which probably took me like 12 years, right? Because there's a community, there's a place where you can practice. Because when you practice and I'm watching them, I'm giving them feedback, their understanding, their confidence to keep coming back and practicing only gets stronger, right? So that was where this whole thing happened. And, I always talk about this part, which is um, by the time, my wife's diagnosis happened, it was almost like, and for me personally as well, it's as if all of what I had been learning was preparing me to be there in a way, the way I was meant to be, right? To be there as a support, to be there to support myself as well. And, that's why, when I teach, I make it a point for people to learn the principles of it, which means if you really know why why are you choosing to do a particular process rather than by rote or like, like a scripted, okay, then you'll say this, and so it becomes very robotic versus when you really feel it, you really, understand why you're doing these processes, then eventually you will mix and match them, right? And so that's, uh, I think I answered probably two of your three questions. If you remember your first question, you can ask me that
I
again.
remember all three. Two are still unanswered.
Okay, tell me
One
which
is,
ones.
what is the difference between NLP and hypnosis,
Ah,
and why did you begin?
yeah.
Like,
So the beginning is what I was sharing with you at this
okay,
point, which was the
so
like
it was just out of your curiosity,
no,
not
it was because I knew I did not want to get stuck in the model of counseling, which it didn't match my personality. So what I do today is exactly what I had seen 20 years ago, right? And so
okay,
I've just been, like an artist, I've just been working at it, working the craft. The difference, um, it's a hard question to answer. What's the difference between hypnosis and NLP? Because NLP was derived from hypnosis. I can
right.
say it like this. Um, in hypnosis, you'll have a lot more intense or very layered experiences. So it might be hard for you to describe what happened. In NLP, it's very it's like this. If you look at you love this one. If you look at a recipe book, okay, and what's your favorite dish?
Um, I don't have a
Pick
specific
one,
favorite, but
just
I like pav
anyone.
bhaji.
Pav
Let's say
bhaji.
pav.
So if you look at a recipe, nice glossy looking photograph of the pav bhaji, and then there's the description of how to make it. And then you look at how your grandma makes pav bhaji. Okay. That's how I would describe hypnosis and NLP.
Okay, got it. Firstly, when people talk about food, I just lose it a little. My mouth already started watering. I forgot. I
Right.
had three questions in mind. I forgot them all.
So so your even I forgot the first one, but I think we're more or less on the same
Okay,
track. So
yeah.
basically,
So yeah,
go
finish.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, since we're talking about hypnosis
Mm-hmm.
and good hypnosis, bad hypnosis, a
Mm.
movie that we saw, Now You See Me. So there's a character called
Ah.
Merit McKinney who does mentalism, which I think is very similar to what hypnosis is. So you can hypnotize people on calls,
Mm.
on just walking through with triggers and so.
Correct. Correct.
Is this really like? I mean, of course,
I'll
they're
answer that
mentalists.
question. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, see, remember, in media, or as in on let's say movies or shows, so for example, if you go to a mentalism show or you watch something on TV, a lot of it has been kind of there's a lot of pre-programming that is done,
Hmm.
right? It's like let's say 2 hours before you come into the show, in different forms, you keep seeing the color blue, but you won't know it is there. It'll be like somewhere at the corner of your eye. Okay.
Right.
And during the show, somewhere in the middle, if I say pick a color, what do you think will happen? There's a very high
Like
probability that you will pick
blue.
blue, right?
Right.
So this is where, if you go back to the old days of magic, you had this very famous, this is many years ago, you had this very famous magician called David Copperfield, right? And why I say that, because his shows were like larger than life. So they were almost, like an opera sort of a thing. And he would do these amazing, tricks, if you want to call it that, right? So in magic, there's something called the setup. And you use the word mentalism, which is it's important to bring that into this context, because mentalism includes hypnosis and many other, like sleight of hand, like the coin, like where's the coin? And then
Mm,
the coin can't disappear. Remember, it's physics. It cannot disappear. It's just about what is the quickest way for your eyes to lose track of it. So mentalism is like this major big umbrella under which you have
mm.
all these like card magic, close-up magic, right?
Techniques.
Close hand, like there are many of these techniques which have been around for hundreds of years. And so even today, when you see something like America's Got Talent or AGT, any of these shows, or Penn and Teller Fool Us or something like that. Okay, there's a magic show where people, it's a talent show where people come in, magicians come in, and they try to fool these two guys who have been around for like OGs of magic, right? In all of this, the setup is what makes the difference. Since
Right.
you talked about mentalism, like Now You See Me, right? So can it be done? Yes, but it requires a series of things to happen. So, for example, if I did not have your rapport and I had said, lift your hands up, and you hadn't lifted your hands up, it just means that right now we are at that stage of rapport. So anything that I do after that, it will not work,
Work.
right? But if I, for a minute, even if I say now, Aishi, like, when you're ready, even though I've said all of this, if I say when you're ready, lift your hands up, look at the space in between and notice when your eyes close, right? Now there's one part of you is like, am I supposed to lift it up now? And they're like, okay, let me hear what he's saying. You know, you understand what I'm saying? So there's
Because you
constant.
said whenever you're ready.
Exactly, right? And that could be now. So when you lift your hands up, you'll notice again there's like a sense in your hands, like, should I lift it up? Should I not? There's a lot of this happening. If I really wanted you to, then I would have set it up differently. Right now, I'm just demonstrating it. That why
Right.
does mentalism work for some and why does it not work for others?
Perfect. Wow. This is amazing. I think something is planted here already that I'm
Of
going to
course.
act upon. But this is a great thing. So mostly we are just tricking our brain and we can use it
Yeah,
to our advantage.
100%. Thank you for saying that. If you that's probably the simplest way of saying it. Here's the thing. Truth is, we are constantly tricking our brains,
Right.
right? You're just choosing now how you want to trick your brain. So if you say, I'm going to meditate, if you say, I'm going to eat right, if you say, I'm going to exercise, that's already the trick in your brain. And when you say,
Right.
I'm doing it because I want to live a really long and healthy, happy life and live my best life in the future, you're already making that future more, you know, something that you want to move towards, right? I want to
Perfect.
do this so that my children will be proud of me, right? That's a huge motivator, right? I'm just giving you examples, right? Like, and this is again depending on who's watching this, when they're watching it, that the power of what we're doing is this, which is, what we say to ourselves, when we say to ourselves, how we say to ourselves makes all the difference,
Brilliant. Okay.
right?
So I have,
So we
yeah,
have a few minutes, and just to show you a
yeah.
different way. So Ayushi, would you like to experience something truly magical in the next 3 minutes?
Yes.
So you
Absolutely.
notice there's already a difference. My energy shifted, and so did yours, right? So I'll show you this as I'm doing it for you. Those of you, make sure that you're not driving, especially if you're doing this exercise. And those of you are not, meaning you're safe at home and you can do this, follow along. So look at it like this, okay? So Ayushi, in a moment, or now actually, and now moment is now, lift your hands up like this and look at that space between the two, right? Literally, like your eyes can actively look at the space between the two. And then in a moment, when you start to look through and beyond this, notice in one hand is all the possibilities of what you want. In one hand is all your limitations. Let me know when you see both. Let me know when you sense both. Yeah, beautiful. And whenever you're ready, you'll notice in a moment, you can do this with your eyes open or closed, but at some point, there is a new entity that will emerge when both your hands come together in a way that you go from limitations to possibility. That's it. And
Got
notice, even if you try now to stop yourself,
it.
you've stepped into possibility. That's it. And no faster or slower than your hands start to connect together like magnets. Even as you imagine and pretend them getting stronger and stronger now. That's it. So even if you try really hard to keep them away, they just get, that's it. That's it. And in a moment, when your hands do touch, you're going to experience something truly prolific, truly magical. That's it. There you go. And when they do finally touch, you'll notice something new emerge. And you'll notice that when you close your eyes and go within and just reflect on this, because you've done something really, really, really powerful. and important today. And as you feel that, you can bring your hands and place them on your body wherever it feels good and natural. Some people choose their stomach, some people choose their gut, their chest, their throat, their face, wherever you feel good. And take the next few minutes whenever you're ready. You'll find yourself one more time coming back here, feeling truly fantastic. And I suspect in the coming days, you'll discover even more of this in the most unexpected times and with people who just show up, a reflection of who you're being more and more, not just now, but for years to come. That's it. And in all the work that you're doing, in all the change that you're bringing into this light, because you are the light, notice how much more that smile glows and brightens. That's it. And whenever you're ready, you'll find yourself coming all the way up. The count of three, one, two, and three, all the way up. Eyes wide awake, refresh. There we go. Refreshed, relaxed, and open and ready to receive more. That's it. All the way up, all the way here. Knowing that you're in this room, Ayushi, and in fact, I'll add one more thing just for you. Take your time because you'll know when you're back here fully, but like in this new you. That's it.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you.
You're most
Thank
welcome.
you for that. Whoa, nice. I have to learn this.
You're always
Okay,
welcome to.
amazing.
Mm,
So yeah, I think you're about to ask now when I touched what was the feeling.
no, it's the beautiful part of this process is that you'll know what's happening,
Yeah,
right?
I'll definitely share later.
Mm.
Okay, so I had some more questions, but again, you broke and took me somewhere else. Okay, so let me count up with guests. So, okay, there are many more people on the call here. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to type it in the chat box. And people who are watching us on recording on YouTube or anywhere else, please share your emotions, your experience of this podcast, and any questions that you have regarding hypnosis, NLP, mentalism, or anything else. And we are not done yet. I'm just giving them a disclaimer in
Mhm,
between.
mhm,
And you can definitely connect with Rahul George on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and watch most of his podcast episodes. I'm also there. You'll learn a lot more things. And this is my aim with Convo with Ash to give you access to amazing people like him. So you can start your personal growth, self growth journey, which, like you rightly said, I did not have access to when I needed. So may you have it. Now, my question, the ultimate question was that most problems people facing are of health,
mm,
relationships, money. The
mm,
career comes somewhere in
mhm,
between.
mhm,
So right now, most cases that I'm dealing with are of relationships, either
mm,
with themselves or others.
mm,
And then health obviously connects to it because ultimately it's
mm,
emotion.
mm,
So how can we apply these techniques, self-hypnosis or NLP, to deal
mhm.
with these?
Um, I guess I'll answer it like this. A lot of, or let's put it like this. Let me simplify it because, again, keeping time in mind, whether it is health, wealth, or relationships, like these are like the three core areas that we talk about. And let's say if we connect wealth and maybe a job, a career, link it into that. Simple way of saying this is everything has to do with what you think, and what you think is largely based on who you identify yourself as. So if you tell yourself, I am no good, I'm useless, and you're basically like you're remembering things that you were probably told many, many decades ago, right? When you were too young to say, I like you didn't have a filter, So you didn't have a way to push aside questions, or let's say you didn't have a way to push aside what people were telling you. And so you kind of just absorb that. And now as an adult, what you're telling yourself is what you were told long ago. And here's the thing. If you believe what you've been told, you will constantly, unknowingly be looking for feedback that matches it. What do I mean by that? If you're told you're stupid, every day you will keep reminding yourself that you're stupid, right? Oh, I'm forgetful. Oh, I'm this. Oh, I'm that. So remember, you're using the word I am followed by something which you are not.
Hmm.
So the simple rule here is, what if you chose to flip it? Which is, you talk about, like we talked about today, a simple practical way is, if you like to do japa and you just literally tell yourself this once in the morning, treat it like if you like to be given prescriptions, doctors telling you, once in the morning, once in the midday, and once at night before you go to bed, where you say, I am love, I am love, I am love, right? You're not even saying, sometimes people will say, and I know it's hard, especially, I've heard this from women say this, that it's hard to look at the mirror and say, I'm beautiful or whatever, and it doesn't. So I'm not saying that doesn't work. I'm giving you one more, a different prescription, which is, you're not talking about how you look, you're just talking about who you are, right? So when you say, I am love, remember, love is the universal emotion, right? We've all felt it at least once in our life, which means we know how to receive it. We know what it feels like. So when we make this our main hero from this point on for the rest of our life, everything else that we say will build around this, right? So, sort of parting words, as you said, the ultimate, this is really the ultimate question, and I'm giving you the ultimate answer. If you just remind yourself every day that I am love, meaning you're telling yourself that. I also, I say that to myself, but I'm saying it to you as well. When you tell yourself this, I am love, I am love, I am love, sooner or later, this becomes part of your muscle. This becomes part of your fiber. And then that will show up in everything that you say, everything that you do, and most definitely everything that you think. So even if you're having a bad day, you will be able to snap out of it much faster. Right. And again, as always, I always say this to folks in my community that, don't take my word for it, test it, right? Test it, explore it, see what happens, do it for a day, or do it even for an hour and see if you feel better. If you feel better, do it again. 2 hours, feel better, do it again. That means the third hour, even if you're just reminding yourself like this. And then as a habit, obviously, it's like as you wake up or as you're brushing your teeth, you're just saying, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, right? In the night, as you're like, fluffing your pillow before you go to bed, you're just saying that. That's the simplest way I can explain it. Obviously, these are like longer, much longer, deeper dives, but the short version would be this.
Wow, amazing.
Mhm.
Out of curiosity,
Mhm.
how much mind reading goes into this, and how have you, mastered it over the years?
I I would put it like this. Firstly, it's an as they say, it's an inexact science, which means a lot of it is based on feeling, right? Because there's no nodes attached to my brain to
Hmm.
tell me what I'm doing, right? It can't decipher how what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. It's just practice. So when you say mind reading, for me, a lot of this is intuition based. So and of course, it's like if you're watching for little signs. So the biggest thing I would say is, when I'm speaking, I'm looking at you. So when I notice shifts in you, I will become present to you and not to what I'm saying. Most people do the other way around. When we start
Right.
speaking, we get caught up in our story and we forget that we've lost our audience. When we say lost, because we've gone into our inner scape,
Hmm.
right? So if I'm inside and I'm talking about the story, I don't know how, are you even here listening? I don't know that. But if I'm looking at you and I'm telling you a story, but when I notice that you're reacting to it, I pause and I like, tell me a little more about that. That's what I do in my sessions. That's what I do one to one in the group. It works beautifully because this is a way to be present. That would be
Great.
my simple answer to,
Hmm.
because there
Yeah.
are multiple layers.
Many.
But the simple thing is, I have learned, it's definitely something I've taught myself, which is even when I'm speaking, I'm always looking at the person to see, are they here or have they checked out? Or have they, something that I've said has made them think of something. So I'm like, you know, tell me more about that. Because here's one final for the moment for today. One final little, if I may, which is uh, everybody loves to hear their own voice. Okay, this is what I treat this as a fact. So when you're able to give the other person that space for them to hear their voice, they will always look to you with different eyes. Because in the world, everybody wants to, even the quiet ones. In fact, given a chance, I'm sure you've seen it, given a chance, the quiet ones will suddenly discover who they've always been. Right? I'm sure you know this. As kids, we were all chatterboxes until we took the message saying, shut up. Right?
Right.
And then we've lived the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years shutting up.
Shutting. So true. Wow. I don't think I am able to shut up with
No,
this one.
I mean, I'm talking about in
No,
general.
no. About the podcast, I mean, because I'm getting so curious and one after the other, just want to keep knowing more and more stuff. So I think we'll do a part two for sure.
Most
But
definitely.
wow, I am very curious, very interested in a lot of things. There were some questions in the chats.
Hmm.
If we have like a few minutes, can we
Sure,
take them?
sure, sure.
So one is like how to cope with colleagues who want, backbiting, politics, bickering, and this is, I think, general. It
Mm.
happens most of the places.
Hmm. So how to cope with so this is I'll give you the easy answer and the not so easy answer. The and I'll start with the not so easy answer. The not so easy answer is to remind yourself, like ask yourself this question, what do you want? Right? So for example, if someone is backbiting, ask yourself the question, what do you want? Do you want to, and the answer could be, I want to confront them. I want them to stop saying this. The second part to that is once you ask the question, check in with yourself. Is this something that's in your control or not? So if someone is backbiting, is it really in your control? Usually the answer is no,
No,
it's not. Because you're not 5 years old or something or 10 years old where you can go and shut somebody's mouth, right? People will speak. That's why online you have trolls or whatever. If you decide to start fighting that, it's a never ending story, right? So the first part is like literally, and keep asking yourself this question, like, what do I really want? Right? Because once you get clear about what you want, then your choices, your decisions will be based on that. That sometimes it may mean you go to a different place. Meaning you're like, okay, if this is how this industry is or this is how this company is, I'll go someplace else. That's the short-term answer. But a lot of times that's not the answer because you will always take yourself wherever you go, right? So deeper than so this is where I'm giving you surface answers because the deep
right.
answers require a lot of context and all
Lot.
of that. But the simple, this is something I practice all the time. I teach it all the time, which is ask yourself this question: What do I want? And once you get answers, ask yourself the question: What do I really want? Once you get clear about that, then you will know: Is it worth you getting into that conversation with somebody who you know is backbiting? Because if they're backbiting, now you're giving them more fuel,
Right.
right?
And what you resist persists.
Exactly right.
Amazing. So, being a self growth and personal development enthusiast, I have loved every second of this podcast. And as I say to people that BHE, which is beliefs, habits, and emotions, I think you can just take control of all of those with these amazing techniques of hypnosis,
Yes.
NLP, and everything else that we do. So go ahead, check out his pages, his profiles, and definitely watch this podcast one more time because I am 200% sure you're going to get something different every single time you watch this. And I think I should always take podcasts unprepared.
Right?
This was super amazing and I loved it. So, one
Awesome.
fine. There are many questions popping now. Very
Hmm.
good, guys. You should have started
Just
from
as we are
the
leaving.
yeah. But this one is really interesting. That is
Uh-huh.
manifestation also linked to
Yes.
hypnosis.
In a simple, again, I'm giving you the very surface level answers. At one level, yes, because what is hypnosis? Going back to where we started, it is about having a focused attention, right? In manifestation, also, that's what we do. It's like saying, if you're going to, if you want to manifest 100 different things at any given, even if you have 100 things on your list, at any point in time, if you're just going one at a time, you're focusing only on one thing. That means you're focusing fully into that one thing, right? So technically, you are stepping into self hypnosis, where if you're telling yourself that, yes, I'm love, I love doing this, I love, giving this to lots and lots and lots of people, then that is how eventually you will make that space for you to receive more of it. So at some level or at one level, yes, hypnosis, manifestation, they're all kind of in that same universe. Let's call it that. Right? They're all superheroes. They're all part of the same Marvel universe or
I
multiverse.
think this is the context and base setting for our part two.
Mm,
Thank you, Neha, for that amazing
yeah,
question. And we will definitely discover more about how you're, combining reading, body language, and activating that superhuman powers and all of that. So holding on to you for the part two. But thank you
yes,
so much
100%.
for this, for your
Been a
taking
pleasure.
out your precious time and your precious knowledge. I think I digged a lot.
It was fun, reminiscing, reflecting on, my journey over the years, and of course, sharing here, and with the intention, of course, that even if someone takes away one nugget, these are all like those super seeds, right? So wherever these seeds land, you will have forests all over the
Yes.
universe. That's manifestation. That's hypnosis. That's all of it, and so much more.
Amen. Amazing. So may this podcast reach everyone who
Yes,
needs anything from this, and maybe create more and more amazing stuff like this. Thank you so much,
my
Rahul,
pleasure.
for giving such amazing knowledge and experiences, and looking forward to a lot more learning
Likewise,
from you.
likewise.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Yeah.